Good morning, everybody. Uh, those of you who have already logged in, I'm Kevin Ouma mwenye ako na sisi hapa. Good morning, everyone. We are on day 3 of Kenya Photo Week, and we have a very interesting session with Kevin Ouma. Kevin Yaje.
Poa sana, man. Poa.
So when we want to get straight to the agenda of the session, this is the second session of 4, today, Wednesday. In the morning, we had Tony Wild, Anthony Ochieng taking us through nature and conservation photography. And now we have Kevin Ouma, who's going to talk about storytelling on the context of documentary photography. And then in the afternoon, we have Evan Sogeto, who will be talking about nature and wildlife. And in the evening, George Adul will moderate a session on Zoom about how to diversify our revenue, our skill sets, so that we can respond to the pandemic and also the changing business environment. So I'll just give you a brief introduction of Kevin Ouma, who is an independent documentary photographer based here in Nairobi, Kenya, and with frequent assignments also in other regions of East Africa. He is an alumnus of Mohammed Amin School of Broadcast Journalism, where he attended on a Reuters scholarship. Kevin focuses his work with nonprofits and commissioned work. He does personal projects as well. He is keen on covering themes around social justice and human rights, especially telling nuanced stories on marginalized communities in East Africa. I can tell Kevin uko focused from what I can spy. You're very focused. His mission is to tell a different story about Africa that shows the diversity of life, society, culture, and community, and the communities, and the traditional perspective of poverty, political chaos that the world is used to seeing about our continent. His most notable achievements include a Foundry Journalism Fellow, World Press Photo Masterclass alumnus. He was also part of the team of top Kenyan photographers who were selected by Safaricom to work on a seminal project capturing unexpected images of Kenya that shaped a new narrative. Kevin currently serves as part of a larger global team in the Compassion International as a photojournalist. In Compassion, Kevin tells stories of children and parents that the organization supports in more than 400 centers across 30 plus counties in Kenya. When not traveling, he enjoys spending time with his wife and son in Nairobi. Hiyo part ni muhimu sana. So I think that is a very good introduction. So for those of you who are following right now on Facebook and YouTube, I'm sure you have a chance to now have a better understanding of our today's speaker. So Kevin, uwanjani wako, make your presentation. I think you have around 30-40 minutes, and then we shall ask questions. Please, those who are following on Facebook and YouTube, feel free to comment, ask a question, and give any views that you may have. Kevin, uwanjani wako. Asante.
Cool. Thank you so much, Nderito. I hope I can be heard clearly.
Yes, we can hear you. Go on.
Thank you. It's always weird when you hear your bio being read. It's like someone else is being spoken of. Unashindwa, huyo ni nani? I'd like to meet that person. So when Nderito asked me to be part of this, let me call it conversation about the place of documentary photography and storytelling, it was a bit weird because the Kenyan documentary space is still, I'd say, I wouldn't say it's as well known or developed as the commercial space. That said, wacha niseme yangu machache. I'm going to talk from my own journey as a photographer, and I'm going to share this based on the experiences I have had through the years. Let me figure out how someone normally shares the screen here. There we go. So documentary photography and storytelling. That's what we're going to talk about. Derek Milimo Mwav naona pale, asanteni sana kwa kuja. I grew up in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm a second born in a family of 6 kids. And my father is a meteorologist. My mother a seamstress, or tunaitanga kukwetu tailor, dressmaker. So you can imagine growing up in a household where you have a scientist and someone who works with their hands. Unbeknownst to a child, that definitely informs your thinking in many ways. And I was surrounded by siblings who could all draw. Like, all my siblings can draw. I mean, your skill ilipita aje. Like, my oldest brother is an amazing painter. He's also an amazing artist with his hand. My brother follows me as well, same thing. My sister's also really good at drawing. Our mother is a really great artist. My dad, I'm not sure, I haven't seen him draw anything. So in our family, I'm the one who struggles with drawing. I up till today do stick figures. So you can imagine how this was for me growing up, where I feel like, kwani kwa hii nyumba sina talanta? It's like everyone else is a storyteller other than you. And so the only exposure I had of photography was this man called Nganga, who during the week used to sell charcoal in a place called Suna. Those of you are familiar with the Ngong Road area, there's a place called Suna Estate, just opposite Excelacom grounds. Nganga would come over the weekends on his bicycle and take all our family photos when we were growing up were taken by Nganga. So that's my first exposure to photography. I used to be very curious about what Nganga was doing. He had those photographs that you'd look through the top. I don't know, I can't remember what they're called, but that's what Nganga used to use. And we had this Uncle Joseph, who will, anytime he'd come to visit us, used to have a point and shoot. And he'd always take pictures of us then, which he'd go process and then send to our parents. So also some of our early photos growing up were taken either by Nganga or Uncle Joseph. And later in life, my dad, for some weird reason, used to just buy cameras, which he'd not use. Like, he just had cameras. He had a Nokia, he had a Samsung later on. Not a Nokia, sorry, Nikon. Sorry, forgive me. A Nikon and a Samsung camera that he just kept. Then he also had a Canon point and shoot. I remember we weren't allowed to touch these cameras. But then, though in this space, I'd be very curious and try and just use them. But you can imagine growing up in a system where you're not really allowed to handle stuff that belongs to the adults. There'd be fear. So I wouldn't say that my desire for photography started at any point there. What I know I loved was a good story. From movies to books. I was a movie person and I was a book person. As a child, I was always reading as well as always watching TV. I loved TV. I used to really soak up stuff, from documentaries to good movies. So a good story, till today, a good story gets me. Journey goes on. You're growing up in a very homogeneous environment where all the men the men here, because principally most of the people who worked in the meteorological space, there were many men who had moved in with their families. So all these people are meteorologists. You really don't have ideas of other careers that exist because of being in a homogeneous state. And so at Form 4, trying to figure out what next for me. And I remember a friend of mine shared that he wants to be a journalist, and I figured, okay, maybe this is something that I think I can also do because we have the same interests. I think the same. So I went into, I figured, let me go into journalism space. Form 4 came and went. then the opportunity to join college came up. I joined a college then called East African School of Journalism that was started by a writer by the name of Roy Gashuhi. East African School of Journalism was just, I'd say we were the pioneering students then. But I felt it wasn't working for me. In that, it's like, imagine a situation where you're really curious to learn and grow, but you're not feeling your environment assisting you. And then I remember one day I was at Toy Market and I stumbled upon this book, the biography of Mohammed Amin, the man who moved the world. This book, in a way, changed my life, changed perspectives. I felt that handling a camera is what was going to be it for me. And so, I'd like to share with you, oh, that's me, so. That finding of that book enabled me to now realize that ideally what I want to get behind the camera. The same year, in 2000, that was 2003, I applied to join the Mohammed Amin Foundation. They had a school where they used to take only 6 students annually to do a broadcast journalism course. I applied, and by the grace of God, I got a scholarship from Reuters Foundation. And this enabled me then to get into a place where I was really stretched technically as a visual creative, I'd say. And that at Mohammed Amin, the training was really, really intense, as you can imagine. After Mohammed Amin, I got into, as any Kenyan, I thought I'll get employed in one of the TV stations. That didn't happen. I eventually ended up as a freelancer in the film space, in the film area. I worked a lot with Blue Sky Films, Sounds and Pictures, a lot. I was a camera assistant, camera operator. And around 2009, I started getting really restless, trying to figure out what the future holds for me, because I felt like in film I really wasn't doing anything creative. I was always doing technical things. And at this time, I remember I joined Tasca Project Fame as a production assistant. And with my first income, I bought a Nokia N70, started taking pictures. And through the compliments from friends around me, this is way before Instagram, way before blogging was a thing. So I'd show people pictures that I'm taking with my phone, and I'd get lots of compliments for my pictures. And it happened that, weirdly enough, 2008, December, my dad sat me down asking, "Boss, what do you want to do with yourself?" I think Aliona wouldn't say, "There's no future here. What are we doing?" So all this happened right at the right time. I told my father I feel like I'm liking photography, and I think that it's a space which I feel I can grow in. And the next question was, so if I get you a camera, you're going to be okay? I was like, yeah. I said yes. Of course, I had no idea what I was saying yes to. And so, March of 2009, I get my first camera, Canon 1000D. And mimi na kimbele mbele yangu, I started saying that I'm a photographer. Ukiniita nikupigia picha, nitakupigia picha. I remember this time I was always walking around with my camera. Then a friend happened to get an assignment with Oxfam GB. I had to cover there was a famine situation in Garissa, so I was asked to go along as a photographer. Guys, so this is one of my, I'd say, first This is like one of my first pictures taken with my camera. It was, you know, when you're doing your first assignment and you don't know the difference between ISO, aperture, and shutter speed, but you've tortured yourself to the point of you think you're that guy, you'll shoot like crazy. I remember I came back home with so many pictures, and then I didn't have a laptop, so for editing, so there was a neighbor of mine, Phoebe Maina, who I used to borrow her laptop so that I can do my editing from. I didn't know about Lightroom. I knew nothing, guys. So none of these pictures were edited. That was I don't know that it was foolish. I don't know what it was. So what I gave Oxfam was what I shot from my camera. So I shot JPEG and gave kila kitu. I didn't know about sorting, editing. Of course, they never called me for another gig. Most of the pictures were overblown, or it was really interesting. The good thing, though, I feel, my experience from film helped me in terms of how I framed my images. Literally, how I perceive my photography is based on my experience from film direction, film production. That has heavily informed how I do my photography. And then, of course, now that I had a camera, the next thing was thinking, so let's get work as a photographer. At this time, of course, unbeknownst to me, I'm in a mental transition from film into photography, because now I'm turning down more and more of the film work because I was not getting any satisfaction, be it monetary or just work satisfaction. It just wasn't coming through. But this, for sure, I started feeling like photography was giving me that. I started getting more and more satisfaction. And I'd like to talk about something. So this is how I've grouped what my conversation will be about. Talking about my early days, then finding my style, talking about mentors, getting work, the business of things, personal projects, my highlights, lessons, and final thoughts. So when I was finally shooting a lot more, as you can imagine, you're suddenly getting a lot of requests to do different things, mostly events, graduation parties, birthday parties, and as it is, you're also carrying your camera full time. And at this time, I started realizing that there's jobs that do and that they bore me out of my mind, like graduation parties, birthday parties, family photos, as in, there's just things which are not coming naturally to me. But when I landed upon documentary photography, what we also like to, in this case, in my space, I'd like to refer to ourselves as NGO photography. I feel like then I found my thing. For two reasons. One, I did not have to constantly interact with my subject. I'll get to that one. Two, I felt like I'm doing work which has impact on a grander scale than just taking pictures. Like there was more that was happening here. And so from here on, I started doing a lot more work around, mostly working with nonprofits and doing my own personal projects. Finding my style became a key thing. And one thing for me for sure has been that I like being an observer. I like being a fly on the wall where possible. You'll find that there are many times when the challenge is you have to constantly interact with your subject, but then you find at times when you interact too much with the subjects, or if they're too aware of being photographed, you then lose that. But then at the same time, you need to interact with them so that they're comfortable with you in their presence. And I must say, I'm really happy for mirrorless cameras that have come in because of the silent shutter. Once the subject is comfortable with me, I'm able to cover them in their space without interfering with that which is going on. I love the mirrorless cameras for that. So like any photographer, so weddings was definitely a staple. So weddings then became the cash cow for me, and then NGO work, what I'd call documentary photography and NGO work, then became like the bread and butter. Is that no? The cash cow, no. The cash cow was the cash cow is the NGO work, and the bread and butter was the wedding work. Sorry, the other way around. Because now wedding works because they are more regular. At this time, you're still building a name. At least every weekend you're shooting a wedding, so that was able to then make sure you have your money for your rent, upkeep, and such like things. But then, as you build a name on the NGO side, on the documentary side, one thing which I came to learn later on is the place of mentors. And mentors here, when I got into photography, it was really hard to. You didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know who to talk to. The last I'd interacted with photography was, Nganga, who used to come into the neighborhood. The next thing you know is the guys at Nyao Monument, the guys at KICC, and Mohammed Amin from his book. So there's really nobody to reach out to. The closest I reached out to someone was Mohammed Amin's former colleague, Duncan Willett. I had just gone to visit him and show him my work and ask questions, because I'm always curious to know from those who've gone ahead of me up until now. So one thing that Duncan told me that has never left me is, you're as good as your last job. That is a mantra that has kept me going through the years. You're as good as your last job. It was that simple. I think maybe that was the only reason I had to meet Duncan on that day. Duncan gave me that word and it has stuck with me. But then, for me, mentors have come through peers. They've come through reading books. Some of the peers that I'd say have really influenced me in terms of style, in terms of approach to work, would be people like Mwangi Kirubi Mwav, Mutoma Veka, Amunga, Alan Gishigi, David Mutua, Boniface Mwangi, Georgina Goodwin. These are people who really, just through random interactions and conversations and asking questions, you learn from their mistakes, from their own approaches to work, and just from reaching out and getting feedback on your own work. And I feel everyone needs this. I feel we need to all surround ourselves with peers and those who have gone ahead of us, who can always speak into our work, who can always critique our work, critique our style, and tell you which hole not to step into. You cannot grow alone. You'll probably move faster, but I feel you'll move further if you have people surrounding you, people who, I dare say, are better than you intellectually, better than you in terms of style and creativity. That for me is a no-brainer. I also would like to mention Abraham Ali, someone also reach out to frequently. There are times when as a photographer, you'll really doubt yourself, you'll doubt your work. And for me, this was like in 2013, just before the elections. That was a very dark time for me, to the extent of losing income. Like, there was no work. There was just no work. And I really doubted why I do what I was doing. It helped to have a very resilient and no-nonsense spouse, of course. So all these are factors which I'd say really influence style and work, especially when you're down. We work alone. We work alone as photographers many times, and it helps to know that you have people you can reach out to. I dare say we can call them colleagues in the corporate sense of the word. So yeah, mentors have really helped me be able to just sharpen myself constantly and grow myself. When I got into photography, one of the hardest things was getting work. I knew I wanted to work with nonprofits. I knew I wanted to grow myself. I knew I wanted to do work and earn from it, but I did not know how to go about it. And so I attended the business enterprise training by a company called Wild International. And of course, then you learn about cold calling and cold emails. And that's what I did. So I emailed tons of NGOs. I mean, I sent emails all over. Then I knocked on doors. There's a time I remember in 2011, I walked all over Hurlingham and Westlands, knocking on doors. Some NGOs, I remember the most classic one for me was MSF. MSF, Medicine Sans Frontiers, did not allow me past their main door. Like, the lady at the reception spoke to me through a glass, through a buzzer, and after I told her I'm coming to share my portfolio with someone in communications, they just told me I needed an appointment. I asked her if I can make one, and I was given a lame excuse as to why I cannot. So, guys, if there was a time I was deflated, it was that day. I was hungry, I was tired, broke. I don't think I even had rent for that month. And I was not getting any work. That was a hard time. I really doubted my decision to become a photographer. I doubted myself bigly that time. And of course, one of the many doubts that happened to most of us. But it's when I realized that it's good to do emails, it's good to cold calling, but the human touch, that one, your relationships go a long way. Who knows you? Who knows you exist? You know, it's easier for David to give me a referral international than for me to email randomly to Care International for work. They'll trust him because they know him. So my first referral was from a friend of mine, James Mamisi, who was then running a branding business. An NGO, TechnoServe International, had reached out to him to redo their website and their brand. And so James told them, hey, you guys, your pictures really suck, and you need good pictures. And James knew that I'm a photographer. We were neighbors then on Nevasha Road. I lived if you're familiar, just before Precious Blood. I lived in a flat over there, and James lived further down the road. So James reached out to me and asked me we go for a meeting pamoja. And that's how I was able to get my first long-term client, my first non-profit client. At that time, my portfolio was based on pro bono work that I've done for a growing NGO, a then growing NGO called the Dignitas Project, that was doing education work in Mathare, as well as from my own personal projects. I'll come back to personal projects later on. So this then was able to usher me, I'd say, into at least a place of earning from my work. Yes, I was still doing wedding work, but now I was able to get into a place where I'm growing in the NGO photography and documentary space, doing stories that I felt mattered. This picture is a picture I took of for humanity and inclusion in Uganda, for work that they're doing there with persons living with disability. And I feel like our work is just part of a bigger purpose. And that's why there has to be two ways to documentary photography and storytelling. The place of supporting organizations to tell their stories, but the place of you telling stories that matter to you without the pay. Something I learned from Mutua. do your own work and you'll be paid for that. You'll never be paid for work that you did for other people, so to speak. But when you do your work in your own time, then your own style comes out. That gives you work. That creates for you opportunities. And so the pictures you're seeing are pictures I've done for different organizations. And all these have come from referrals. Like, you get a random email. I mean, someone mentioned to someone that you did some work, and there you go. You get a job. I mean, I've been able to work in Somalia, Uganda, Burundi, Tanzania, Zambia, Malawi, all because of referrals. Like, the last time I did actual marketing was in 2011. That time when I knocked on doors that did not open for me. Doors that were closed in my face. But through relationships, I was able to get work, be able to build a brand. Of course, then you go online. Instagram started becoming a thing in mid to late 09. You get over there. I closed my Instagram page, so please don't go after me over there. You won't find me. And so some of these are images that then I ended up doing over time for different organizations. This was in Malawi, so it was a story around women in agriculture. This was, I remember, this was in Kwale. I believe it was a story on cashew nut farming. This is a recent malaria story I did in Baringo as well. But then I'd like to talk about voice and style. Again, voice and style come when you're comfortable in your skin. You're comfortable with who you are and what you're able to emit. Countless times I asked myself questions about my voice and style, because especially in our day and age, other people's work is constantly in your face. You need to be comfortable enough in the work you're doing, and the only thing I dare say that other people's work should do to you is challenge you and help you hone your skills further. Not you so much doubting yourself and your work, because we always get work based on our capacity. And one of the places I feel I saw this strongly, and I don't know whether let me say I regret heavily, was when I did the Safaricom Capture Kenya season 2, I think, or was it 3? I really doubted myself when I was doing the work, because I felt I had inferior equipment. For some weird reason, some inferiority complex just crept into me. And until my wife reminded me, boss, you got this job based on your portfolio, based on your skill. That woke me up. That was like a slap in the face, because a poor workman judges their, I think I paraphrase, a poor workman judges the equipment. It's not equipment, guys, it's just you and your heart. We have this thing where we always ask someone, hey, what camera are you using, what lenses are you using? We can get so trapped into gear lust that we forget to just do. Just do. I mean, that which you have. I mean, I started with a phone, and I got really good pictures with a phone camera. And that started me on a journey to photography. How much more a basic DSLR, you know? And as we... Sorry. I'm referring to my notes as well. So, just a place of constant reinvention. So, this is a portrait I also did recently of also persons living with disability. And there's causes that I care about. I care about people not being looked down upon. I care about people standing out, and it's important that we do work not just for money. Money is important, but money will follow good work, and good work happens when you are doing you. We can complain for not having work, but there's work all around us. There was a time, I think, I don't know which year that was, we were talking about personal projects with someone, and I realized that my personal projects have revolved around two things: series and themes. I love series. I like repeated things. I don't know why. I just like it when things repeat. And so one series that I did, let me just look for it. Yes, there's this series that I did. It was based on water paddles. I called it the water paddle series. It was during the rainy season, and my inspiration came from a Congolese photographer, visual artist, the late Kipiri, is it Kipiri or Kiripi Katembo, who did a lot of work in the slums of Kinshasa. And he used to take pictures of daily life in water puddles. And the reason was, it was easy to take pictures of reflection in water puddles than to ask people to be photographed, because people will always be aggressive at these times. And I'm like, hey, that's actually right. That can work. So I literally just took Kipiri's approach, twisted it a bit, and used it. And the pictures just used to come out in a very, very nice way. You just see daily life happening in water puddles as reflections. I think I titled it Reflections. And from this series, one day I got an email, a random email, guys, from an NGO in the UK, asking me if I can do the same series, do something similar for their projects that they're supporting in Dandora. That was a shocker. Who would have thought that from just doing photos of water paddlers in Nairobi, I was going to get work out of it. Work was the last thing on my mind when I was doing this. I just wanted to have a space of creative expression. And the water paddles did that for me. I was able then to just do something similar for a client and be paid for it. How beautiful is that, you know? And so I repeat, don't wait for work. Look around your environment and just create. Samir, you're asking me, how do you manage to take pictures around Nairobi? I've been told that there is issues with authorities reprimanding people taking photos in town. Kwani ni kweli au nimeogopewa? No, it is true. It's really, Nairobi is one of the hardest cities to photograph in. Between the city council, the police, and thugs, you're always battling those ones. So, Samir, I'd say weekends are some of the easiest to shoot around Nairobi. And nowadays, I feel like cameras are becoming more and more things people are familiar with. And I'd say if you can have a smaller camera, like a point and shoot or a mirrorless camera, I feel will be better than having a DSLR with a long lens. I feel a mirrorless camera with a 35mm on it or a 24mm on it may be more nondescript than having a larger, say a 5D Mark IV with a 2470 on it. Yeah. That said, you could try just have people around you and shoot as a team. Something we used to do as One Touch, I'll talk about One Touch later on. Something we did as One Touch was shooting as a group. You're all shooting different things, but you're together. Yes, here and there, it used to get us into problems, but in your case, for example, just go to City Council, get a permit to shoot on that day, or I don't know who gives licenses right now. I don't know you can shoot, but you need the paperwork. More, please share on chat the process of getting the paperwork. I don't know that it's for City Council or Kenya Film Commission. I can't remember clearly, but there is at least a clear way by which you can get permission to be able to shoot. At least if you have the paperwork, it supports you to shoot within town. So it's possible to shoot. Without paperwork, it will be hard for you to shoot because paperwork gives you support and backing that you can at least show to police and to City Council. You'll pay some money for it, but it's worth it instead of having no paperwork at all. So personal projects are something I'd vouch for anyone. Yes, I mean, group photo sessions are there. There are different groups. I think Park Kenya normally organizes random group photo sessions. Be on the lookout within Park. I'll ask Nderito to share any information. At times you'll find some, probably it's possible to be part of a group. Then that way you can go together. Like one touch, we were a collective. A collective helps you be able to do work together. So if you can come together as a collective, that can actually make a difference to be shooting together. You don't have to be registered necessarily, but have like-minded photographers that you can work with, that then you can do things together, from getting licenses to getting doing photo walks and the likes. It was a big deal when the middle ages of I dare say middle ages of Instagram, but I feel it's something that come back. Think of it as the Insta walks that used to happen in Nairobi. That will be a good start. This picture I took in Migori. We were moving around, and then we happened upon this gold mine that is in Migori, and I was able to talk to the miners and ask them if I can go down into the shaft with them. That was very daring, guys, because those shafts go really, really deep. I can't remember how deep, but they gave me the gear, and the gear here is a torch on your head. Yani, I think I was being propelled by adrenaline. There was just this excitement at going down. But in it, I saw the possibility of doing a series of images that Kenyans never really get to see. We hear about gold mining in Kakamega, gold mining in Migori, in Kuria, but we never really get to see how it is down there. So I went down a mining shaft and got to see what the miners deal with. I mean, so for example, this is me on the journey down, and this is my guide. So what helped was my torch was like the torch that I was given a torch. That was what was helping me to light my pictures. I chose black and white because I wanted the focus to move away from the rocks around the subject and the person to be like the focus of the picture. So this is us on our way down. Then yeah, when we got down, we came upon this open space, and there was all these guys are sitting, chilling, I think taking a break. The air down there was not the best air. Like I think I was on the precipice of a panic attack because of losing breath. Yeah, but it gave me a desire to want to go back and do a greater story around miners in Migori, mostly because these people risk their lives every day to get very small batches of gold that which will then be sold in the open market, and they use mercury with open hands to get the gold from the rocks. So for me, I was seeing this as a greater story around health, around economic, socioeconomic development, because the mining of gold then pushes, there's HIV, because then prostitution and money come together. Then as well, the touching of mercury with bare hands also mean that these guys have a high propensity towards skin cancer and other forms of cancer. So it's a story that I'm still working on. It's still on research mode, but I'm looking to go back to to just do, because there are many elements to this. For example, there's children who work under these mines, and as you can imagine, that is just dangerous for the children. No education because of easy money. Patrick, you ask, what inspires your source of personal projects? Where would you advise someone to get ideas? Patrick, thank you. That's a very good question. I say my ideas for personal projects come from two sources: things I care about and things I'm curious about. And at times, just the most random of things. Things I care about education, healthcare. I care about, I think those are the two biggest things for me: education and healthcare, as well as just daily life of people. Like, the reason why these miners are a big deal for me are poverty pushes them to do that which ideally they wouldn't do. Children are forced to get into mining because at home there isn't anything. A parent figures, go mine or there's no food. Let me share something with you from a random. So allow me to just close this one and share another one. Let me just share something else. Patrick, there's a story I did, not so much a story as a personal project that I did. And it was based on, can you see that? It was just based on windows, windows in Kibra. I noticed that the windows were different, but at the same time, in the differences, there's lots of stories in there. I feel series tend to tell really good stories. For example, Patrick, you can decide to tell stories of potholes in Nairobi and just take a series of pictures of different potholes, and that in itself becomes a story, because as long as you have a body of work, a story comes in. And that's the thing with personal projects. The most mundane can be the greatest of things. I did a personal project from shooting water paddles. Anything can become a personal project, Patrick. Think of the obvious things happening in society right now. For example, there's a higher uptake of makeup amongst younger women now. I'm sure you have friends who are ladies. You can just have them wear makeup as they like, and then you do a portrait of their faces in makeup with a one background, and then that's something, and there's a story there. Because at the end of the day is what story am I trying to tell? Is there a story, or am I leaving this to the viewer? So it's important that you don't overthink it. I'd say just do. Things will work out in the middle. You don't have to know the whole process. At times, things just work themselves out in the middle. At the same time, the place of you being able to then go into the deeper stuff. The stories that are very close around us. For example, right now, a lot we are losing loved ones every day to cancer, to suicide. Is there a story that can be done around suicide? In 2015, I lost my brother to suicide, and that hit hard. But then I realized that no one doing work around, very few people are doing work or conversations around mental health. So I started a project in 2019 on tattoos, and just to show how people were talking about sharing their pain through body art. And at times you find that pain is around us, or we don't see it. But then it means that us as photographers, as observers of the world around us, can actually tell the world, hey, stop, this is happening. Can you see it? And now more than ever, we've got a lot more platforms to share this work, from IG to 500 pics to Tumblr to Facebook itself. So I think now more than ever, there's no excuse not to do a personal project. And I feel all of us should do a personal project. It can be an annual project, it can be a monthly project. You can start by a simple 30-day challenge, but it's a project. And so I'd say don't hesitate to do a personal project. Just do. Just do, and things will just work out for you. Personal projects have gotten people work. Personal projects are, outside of work just bring the greatest satisfaction. So I did this Windows project, and it was an Instagram project. Instagram was where I put it up. And you find that, you don't necessarily have to do a photo exhibition, because Instagram already is an exhibition in itself. And you can also become a book. You can also make it into a book, So personal projects are just, it's a vast and expansive world. And this brings me to a point where I'd say, I feel like the documentary and storytelling space in Kenya has barely scratched the surface. There are too many stories around us that are yet to be told. Stories of people, stories of things. I mean, there are too many. There's too many. Right now, we have monuments all over Kenya. You could decide that every time you travel to a new town, you just take a picture of a monument. It becomes a long-term project, and it can be the monuments of Moi's hand with the Fimbo ya Nyayo. There are a couple of towns with that Fimbo ya Nyayo. It can talk of a past gone and a new present. The last time we did the monument was, I think, at least in Nairobi, I know it was the Tomboya statue and the Dedan Kimathi one. But you can imagine, before that, the other monument that happened was the Nyayo National Monument. So that tells you conversations around culture, around a people, around that which they believe in. Currently, it looks like the new monuments are the plaques showing, are they plaque or plaques, showing that the president has opened a road. As in, what conversations are you trying to create through your work? Yes. Dorito, how is my time?
It's moving on well because you're responding to questions. Maybe in 2 minutes, let me check on Facebook so that we can get to know. There are also comments on Facebook that you can check. I think we have you have around 10 minutes left.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dorito. So back again. I think my biggest emphasis today was on personal projects more than anything else. Let's not wait for the money, the work. That will come. Let's do personal projects. That for me has really helped me. I think biggest regrets, I think I should do more. I should push myself more to do more personal projects. As we move towards winding up, let me keep some of the pictures going. If you have any question, please feel free to share on the chat. Okay, here we go. Sorry guys, I hope oh, please don't drop. I'm losing you guys. Yeah, so the highlights, I want to talk about some of what I feel are the highlights of my career. highlights come in two ways. One is monetary. Two, it's giving back. When I joined photography in 2009, after coming from film, I wouldn't have thought I would have made the progress that I have made. I started out lonely. I started out not knowing anything outside of myself, so to speak. And then from Amunga, I got introduced to One Touch, which played a very vital part in my growth as a photographer, because I was with peers who were able to sharpen me and who were able to grow me as a photographer and as an individual. And when you come from a place where you really don't know who to talk to, I'd say with mentors, these are two things. Patrick has asked about mentors, then I go back to what I was talking about. Seek out people who, the simplest mentor you can get is a book. Patrick, the simplest mentor you can get is a book. Just get books on photographers whose work you like. At the same time, go online and see the work of other people. I dare say something which I find is really hard in Kenya, but it's possible. Reach out to photographers locally whose work you feel is something you aspire to, or at least who you aspire from. Then let them guide you in their journey. And mentorship doesn't necessarily have to be we meet every week. It can be we hang out once and we have a conversation, but you need to know, you as the mentee need to know what you want from the relationship. And then at the same time, then you grow from there. But you need to constantly be in touch with someone who you consider a mentor. That's the only way you're going to grow. And then at the same time, surround yourself with peers who are pushing you towards growth as well. So my highlights from my career, I'd say one of them is definitely doing the Safaricom 2015 calendar. For me, that's a big highlight. Not so much the monetary bit, but just being part of then a good project as that one was. And then also doing some work for the United Nations Development Program, which was a very big project, covered within 30 days or thereabouts. But my biggest highlight is a young man who I met I can't remember which year that one was, but I met him and he shared the desire to grow in photography. And so I brought him on board as my assistant. And we worked together for 3 years. And now this is someone who, by himself, he's his own photographer, can stand on his own 2 feet. He gets work for his, as in, I'm a shika, so to speak. He doesn't need me. He's actually better than me now. I think for me, if anything else from my career, that's the best thing ever. As in, being able to have impacted someone else's life to the point where they are right now and have a sustainable life through photography, and have grown themselves to the place where now they're able to do much more than even that which I had exposed them to. Their self-confidence has improved, their self-esteem has improved, and they can stand on their own 2 feet. I feel for me that has been one of the greatest joys of my career so far. Lessons from my career has been keep daring. You see a good idea on a personal project that you want to do, just do it. Don't just ask yourself don't ask yourself too many questions. Just start. You know, at times I feel we are trapped in being perfect, that we then stop even doing and thinking. Keep daring, keep doing. Stay foolish, stay hungry, I'd say. Samir asking me, are there chances of doing residencies with photographers such as yourself? Yes, there are. For me, I'd say, like, what will work with me will be we hang out, we talk a bit, and then I get to know where your mind and your heart is, and then from there, through a journey of we can't really time it, but through a journey of a year to 6 months to a year or more, you then grow to finding your own voice. I say these are some of the ways by which I can help you grow yourself as well. Because I have grown under the wings of other people, and I'm a big believer in sharing my journey with others, so that you do not have to go through the same experiences I have. I believe a generation has to have it easier than the previous generation, so to speak, because we have tested the waters, we know how they are, we know where to step. So yeah, for sure that is something that can be done. And I dare say also experimenting more. In the documentary space, I think we can get so stuck in doing things the traditional way, yet there are many, many ways by which one can actually tell stories that matter. And this, from the simple things like moving from portraits to conceptual work, mixing pictures and graphic design, mixing pictures and comic art, as in just thinking of different ways by which we can tell stories. And if people can check out ICP, International Center for Photography, has some really good We Transfer also tends to have, on their website, have some really good inspiring stuff from photographers around the world, just doing photography in a very conceptual way. And the thing is, do stories that you care about and put them out there. Just do them. Just do them. Don't focus so much on who is doing. Do it for yourself. Do it for yourself. When we get stuck on what I call the dog wags the tail, isn't it? But at times we allow, as photographers, we allow the tail to wag the dog. The thing is, we allow our audiences to dictate our art. I feel this is wrong. I feel you as a photographer should do you. When I was doing my window work, when I was doing my portholes, my water paddles, I was not doing it for anyone. I was not doing it to be accepted by anyone. I was not doing it to be affirmed by anyone. The affirmations and the acceptance, yes, go far. But beyond everything else, you have to be the first fan of your work. You have to be the first acceptor of your work. Yes, documentary photography isn't glamorous. It's not cool, but it is beautiful. No one photography is better than the other. I feel all of them matter because all of them tell stories. The commercial photographer is telling stories, the food photographer is telling stories, the documentary photographer is telling stories. All of us need to tell stories our own way. So please experiment more and just do things for yourself. Seek out ideas and just do for yourself. Don't do because you think people should see. No. Do them because you just want to do them. Just because you want to. That goes further than anything else. You lose the plot as soon as you're constantly doing work for others and affirmations. Doing work for other people to see. Whether they love it or not, you've done it. It's out there. It's in the public domain. The main thing is that which was in your mind and processed through your eyes and your camera is now in the open. My encouragement is we need to do a lot more personal projects around the most mundane of topics, the most mundane of themes, to the greatest of themes. Breast cancer, love, old age, childhood. Our stories are all around us. Stories are in your community. Stories are right outside your door. Patrick, I dare say you can do a series of pictures of doors across Nairobi and do a photography project on doors. Photography projects can last from a week to years. You can decide to follow the lives of 3 children across the city, living in different parts of the city, from birth until their teenage, to tell the stories about how our environments affect our lives. As in, yo, guys, stories are all over, you know? And then I think another lesson I've learned is putting ourselves out there more. I feel I should have put myself out there much more. And I feel for the younger photographers, this is even a great opportunity than anything else, being out there much more. Right now, I'm in a different space where I'm an in-house photographer within a non-profit, but I'm still doing that which I love doing. I'm telling stories of Kenyans and of people all over the world through my camera. And there's no time limit to our work. You can do this until you die. You can decide one day that, okay, I'm done. Something else, please. Let's be flexible and just learn to grow with it. My final thoughts are that we need to tell more stories. We need to keep telling more stories. I feel there's a lot of stories around us. I'll emphasize this much more. There's a lot of stories around us. Let's keep telling them. Money is good, but let's focus on the skill and the story first. Create stories, and money will follow. I guarantee you that. Money will come, but it should not be the focus. Trust you me. Thank you all very much for listening. Thank you for being part of this conversation. I hope I've been able to say something that has mattered. I'm open to any questions out there, if there are any, and then we can close. Thank you. Steve?
Asante sana. Even for the guys who are following, I see Derek, I see Moav, I see David Mutua, I see Samir, who's been with us from day one. I see Patrick M, Bonnie Modoni, Tony Wild. And I also saw a comment, Kevin from Haushinsky, who was saying peer review is very important, hook of Facebook. And I think you emphasized on that bit when you talked about your earlier beginnings. And I think one of the people who in our photography community, I have heard the story of One Touch being shared many times. And surely One Touch ilitoa many students, because from One Touch, all of you guys came out to be movers and shakers. So it's the power of that community, that family, guys who are there to support you. On Facebook, we also want to appreciate Camera Citizen. I'm sure that's not the name of your ID, but Tumekuona na Paushiski and the rest who are following. So Kevo, thanks very much. Thank you for showing us your work and using that story of your photography journey to share your knowledge, your experience, your inspiration, your challenges, your lessons. And I hope that those who've been following have been able to learn as you continue to do your projects. The gospel of personal project has been preached over and over. It's very important for developing our personal brands. For those of us who are following, we have come to the end of this session. We will have a session in the afternoon at 2:30 with Evans Ogeto on nature and wildlife photography. And then we will have Georgia Dulu moderating the session on Zoom. Just repeat that it will be on Zoom. In the evening, when we talk about how do we adapt to the pandemic and all the disruptions in our space, and how do we multiply our revenue channels so that we just don't photograph, we do content creation and related kind of stuff. So asante sana Kevin, and everybody who's following, wacha tuende tutafute lunch and we hook up later on. Asanteni. Bye bye.
Thank you for having me. Asante sana.